What is up, guys? John the Retro Bro back again with another episode, with another vlog. Do you even retro, bro? We're talking retro. We're talking, today we're going to talk about a console that changed the gaming landscape. One of my favorite consoles, dear to my heart, and that is, yes, the old PlayStation 1. That beautiful gray box that we so remember and have such fond memories of. But as much as we love the PS1, it is one of those consoles that I always say it has aged like wine in the back of a trunk on a 95-degree day in Florida. But guys, we are going to talk about a couple games that I think have actually aged pretty well, and without a remaster or anything else like that, they're still pretty fun to go back and play mechanically and visually. They look good, they feel good, and they play good, guys. So let's talk about games from the PS1 5th gen era that have aged pretty well. So one of the things when I was coming up with a list of these games was what games, first I want to talk about 3D games because I feel like 2D was kind of a cop-out, okay? So I want to talk about 3D games because, I mean, pretty much any 2D game for the most part, I mean, is gonna age well. I mean, you look at like the 16-bit games, the cartoon style games, the sprite-based games, and they've aged pretty well. Like SNES games and Genesis games. I want to say more SNES games, but those are easier to go back to generally than I feel stuff like from PS1 or the N64 is. And that's because 3D games in the early 5th gen, they were still kind of experimenting. There was a lot that they were still learning. Developers were kind of, experimenting with, and the gamers, unfortunately for us, we were kind of the guinea pigs, and we played these games, we bought these games, and we tested them out. We told them what we liked, we told them what we didn't like. And one of the biggest things I noticed when I came up with this list, aside from the one game, is you can move the camera around as you play the game. At least in the first one. At least the first one I'm going to talk about, the first game that has aged well, is actually Spyro the Dragon. And I would put the first and second one on this list. Spyro the Dragon, because it's a very cartoon style game, it's not too jagged when it comes to the 3D elements of the game. It's not too, blurry. Because it has that cartoon look, it still looks pretty good for the most part for the day. And the controls are phenomenal. In this game in particular, you can control the angle of the camera, full 360. You can roll, you can spin, you can jump. There's no delay. Spyro the Dragon is definitely one I feel has aged very well, and that's one that does not need a remaster that I can go back to and play anytime. Another game I'm going to talk about is you can't change the camera angle, but you can move around the stage a little bit more, and that is probably the best fighting game ever created, and that is Tekken 3. Tekken 3 visually for the PlayStation 1 was amazing. I mean, I could not believe when I put this game in that I was even playing a PlayStation game. Like, this game for its time just looked so real, and even today, it has aged very well. Mechanically, it's still a good game. There's no delay when it comes to certain moves. It flows, plays well, and it looks good to this day. So Tekken 3 is definitely one that I would say aged very well. Still easy to go back and play without having a remaster. The third game I'm going to talk about actually does have a remaster, and it came out last year in the Crash Trilogy series. And it got a remaster, but I don't think it needed one, and I'm going to say Crash Bandicoot Warped. The best Crash Bandicoot game, and I know I said 2D games were kind of off limits, but this really, it's a 3D game, but it's not a 3D game. The biggest thing for this game with me is the controls, and you can't move the camera around in this game, but you can always see where you're going. You can see the levels, you can see the platforms, you can gauge the distance. There are some instances in some areas of the game when you're hanging on the walls that distance might be a little difficult to gauge, but for the most part, I think, you know, Crash Bandicoot Warped has aged very well, and it added some new mechanics, like some of the jet waves when you're on the bike, when you're on the motorcycle, a lot of stuff. The airplane parts were phenomenal. I used to love that. It was like playing an on-rail shooter. But yeah, Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped is another one I really think has aged very well. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about, guys, is actually a game I was not real familiar with. I never really played it too much. I remember playing a demo when I was younger, and I was going through this list with a few of my friends, and a friend of mine had mentioned this game, and I just kind of didn't really think too much about it. I was like, you know, I got to go play it first. And that game is Ape Escape. And Ape Escape actually has aged very well for the most part. Again, it's much like Spyro, where it has more of a cartoony style to it, so I think it helps. I mean, because when you look at games from PS1 especially, when they try to make realistic graphics like Vagrant Story, Parasite Eve, I wouldn't really count Final Fantasy, but Siphon Filter is a good example. The guy looked like a rectangle with a smudged face. They just didn't do that very well. And Ape Escape, again, because it uses those cartoon style polygons, I think visually it has aged a lot better than something that tried to be more realistic. And the gameplay, guys, the gameplay is just excels. Like I said, you know, my friend said it felt like a Nintendo game, and he's right. It really does feel like a Nintendo game on the PlayStation. So I got to give it to him there. Ape Escape is the last one I'm going to talk about of PS1 games that I think have aged really well. So I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. I just went over a few. Honestly, it was hard. I mean, when you're not talking 2D games and you're just talking 3D games, it was hard to make this list. I was going to put Medieval on there, but Medieval, I just think, because of that game, the way that I did go back and play it before I made this video, and just because of the way that game controls and because of how dated the controls are, I just couldn't put it on the list. That was one I really wanted to have on there. So honorable mention if I'm going to do one. That almost made the cut. But let me know what you guys think. What games from the 5th gen or PS1 in particular do you really enjoy playing that you can go back to anytime and play and not feel like you're limited by the graphics or the controls, by the dated technology? Guys, please like the video, share the video. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and poke around the channel. Hopefully I got some good content for you. And join the Broforce below. Check out the website. Get yourself some cool t-shirts like this. And guys, we'll see you on the next video. Be nice in the comments. Take it easy, guys. This video is brought to you by RetroBroGaming.com. If you enjoyed this video, support the channel by clicking the link below, where you can get pre-built Raspberry Pi 3 kits so you can enjoy all your retro favorites. Visit the apparel shop and get your custom Retro Bro t-shirts and workout tanks. Thanks for watching, and do you even retro bro?